on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
And even in your partnerships, you're going to have, or your roommates, right? Any relationship, you're going to have these conversations to make sure there's alignment. Finding alignment with the people around you, using communication to get there, using self-awareness to be a piece that pushes you into better alignment with like what you want, what you need. Go, do, see. And if you need help with, like there are people out there that can help you.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Toombs, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Welcome back to today's episode of Sorority Chat. I'm very excited for today's guest. We have Dr. Daryl Appleton with us. She offers wellness for high performers. She has a dedicated firm to challenge executives, medical professionals, pro athletes, and those in high-performing, high-burnout positions to address the entanglement of personal and professional issues as a means of mitigating burnout, increasing performance, and improving on metrics related to success. It's very much giving Wendy Rhodes from Billions. Hi, Dr. Appleton.
Hi, I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining me. I'm so glad we could get on here and talk today.
Ready to do it.
Well, so I had the pleasure of first being introduced to you. It was about 2 years ago now. You came to the Alpha Gamma Delta Empower Institute and spoke to us. I was there as a facilitator. We were at a small rural camp in, I think, South Georgia, right?
Yes, it was quite rustic. And being from outside New York City, very outside of my comfort zone, but it was very lovely. It was wonderful. It was a great event. We got to talk leadership. We got to talk, being a woman and utilizing our strengths. Like it was a very great day. And I have been obsessed with you for a long time. So I love that we actually got to meet in person because I love everything you're doing.
Well, you're very kind. There's mutual adoration, I should say, because I remember you walked in and I was like, oh, she looks cool. Like she's super fashionable. I'm like, this is great. And then you know what the funny thing was? You were telling a story about the way that you approach going to the airport and how you like make it there by the skin of your teeth. And my thought was, we are not the same. We are not the same. I'm the person who goes and makes sure the gate is there. And then I go get my Starbucks and my drink in the bathroom and do all the things. And then I come back. So just a funny little aside.
That is really funny. I've changed a bit since having kids because now I need to be that much earlier and that much more on time. So my type like B+ really turned into like an A-. So for those of you out there listening, there's still hope for you. If you're wanting to be a little bit more type A, it's out there. It's out there.
You could always change, I suppose. I'm trying to become a little more type B. You're trying to become a little more type A. So we're just maybe a little flip-flop, meet in the middle.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, gosh. Well, yes. So as you talked about, when we were at this institute, you were kind of addressing leadership and being women leaders and all of that. And so I started following you on social because I just love some of like the tips that you give for, like I said, high performers, high achievers. How did you come to kind of make that your little corner of the world and the folks that you are serving now?
It's kind of interesting. So my career started in mental health and I wanted to fix the world and save everybody and realized very quickly, especially because I started in addictions, that wasn't always the case. And I found that I had a real knack for working with people who weren't saying what's wrong with me, but saying, how do I make things easier, better, more streamlined? And my background really in sports and being a athlete in college. I played basketball in college. I played basketball overseas for a hot second. And that to me was a cornerstone of the foundation that I had around coaching and well-being and helping people be that all they can be. So that kind of shifted. And I started to get more and more executives that would come to me, more people who are starting businesses. And then I had professional athletes that would come to me. And I started to say, wow, like I'm really energized by this. Like I love helping people work smarter and not harder. And I love talking
Mm-hmm.
about things that aren't what's wrong, but how to make things right. So my dissertation research and my doctorate's in leadership. And I really looked at, what's the difference between like a good and a great team? Like how does
Mm-hmm.
well-being play a part in our ability to be successful and to succeed? So that's been something that I've been really passionate about. And it's really pivoted my career entirely into more of that. But I wouldn't take away my foundation and my knowledge base in mental health because it gave me, I think, such an advantage over just knowing human behavior from like a really clinical piece and perspective. So it's an interesting story. It's not the craziest one I've heard, but it did take quite a turn when I was like, I don't know how great I am in like mental health, but I need to like be helping and working with people, and was able to find this capacity to do so, and some people who trusted me enough to do it with them.
I really appreciate that, especially the fact that you said focusing on not on what's wrong, but focusing on, how to get better and what to do right. I love that positive spin. And I by no means am a mental health expert, but I have just finished a certification myself called Science in Design. And I like geeked out, right? Because it's all about how to apply neuroscience to my profession and let that inform design decisions that I make and suggestions that I make to clients in the sorority space, and like how my team can help like promote positive mental health and wellness in the students that are living and hanging out in this space.
I think space is like an underrated and underutilized way to make ourselves feel better in the physical world. Like I use it with fashion. I talk a lot about fashion and how it can literally boost, all of our dopamine and our transmitters and like stuff like that. When we feel good, when we think we look good, it makes us feel better. When we're in beautiful spaces, when we feel like we're at home, like there's something about our physical surroundings and our mental well-being. I mean, just look at when like your room is a mess or your house is chaos, like your physical stuff is out of place and out of order. Like it does something to us. And I think doing design intentionally, whether again, like that's your closet and you're kind of curating an outfit, whether that's how you design your day, whether it's designing the space that you live in, there's something really beautiful about knowing how to utilize that in whatever profession you're in. And even if you're an individual trying to like become the architect of your own world, there's something like really kind of cool about human behavior. And again, I can nerd out about that all day, every day, but I love that I'm in good company because I think that's so cool. Like color psychology, I'm sure like the patterns on the walls, like I want to talk to you all about that. That sounds amazing.
Well, and it's funny that you brought up like color psychology and patterns on the wall. Have you ever had your colors done for fashion?
I have.
So have I. Do you like nerd out about that now when you're selecting clothing and things for yourself?
It wasn't as surprising as I thought it would be because I've always been very good at like, ooh, this looks good on me, this doesn't, as like a winter, a fall and autumn winter of sorts. But I think that it was kind of cool because now when I want to buy something that's a little bit more pricey, I'm like, is this in my color palette? Do I just like it because it looks good on her, or do I see it on me? So it helps me strategically to make buying decisions, I have found. And it almost is like another check and balance to, instead of me and my impulsivity of being like, let's just get it. I'm like, no, I don't really look good in dark blues. Like, let's see if they have it in a nice hunter green.
Yes, I fully agree with that. It probably helps save me money more than it does anything else because it does inform my clothing choices. And then I went a step further and took another class from somebody at House of Color that talked about my personal style and like fit and what kind of patterns I like. And just like you're saying, it wasn't necessarily groundbreaking. I kind of had an idea. But again, that information informs my buying decisions. And so I feel like I'm making smarter choices and not just buying things because, like you said, it looks good on somebody else or it's the current trend at all.
I think the most important thing there is like, I think everyone should do it because I think the most important thing is decision-making fatigue, right? When you can learn about yourself, when you can learn whether that's clothes, whether that's what you like on the walls, like whatever, when you can learn about yourself, all of a sudden you're streamlining that information into an organized process of you're allowing there to be less ambiguity. You're allowing you to have less triggers to go throughout the day. And sometimes the biggest trigger is like, what do I wear? When I work with my execs, we talk a lot about decision-making fatigue. Right now, I'm in-house at Brown University as their chief of wellness and with the surgery department, the general surgery department. And we talk about this decision-making fatigue and this mental fatigue about how when you're constantly making decisions, sometimes you just need to know more about yourself or more about a thing or automate something. So that way you have less to decide and more energy to put towards something else that you're really trying to accomplish or that needs your attention, whether that's at work or in life or probably both.
You are so right. It's kind of the Steve Jobs effect, right? Of like where he had that capsule collection for a wardrobe because he didn't want to spend the mental energy or the time selecting the clothes every day. I like clothes more than that and need more variety. But yes, the decision fatigue is so real. I mean, I see that in my busy seasons at work, that anything I can do to minimize choices and have my outfits pulled out or have my dinners planned after work, then I can put all my energy into the workday and then just sort of coast the rest of the time.
And I think that's what makes high performers high performers. They know how to structure their lives, their day, their minutes, their hours, because when we're really talking about optimization, right? When you can do what you just said of, I know I'm entering into my busy season and I know I'm going to have less time to do more things. So what needs to be automated? Great. I'm going to order in, or I'm going to have, meal delivery service come because that's one less thing I have to worry about. Like, I think that if I had to give people advice, knowing what you need is so important. So getting to know yourself, and that sounds like so woo-woo, but I mean that in like the most like literal, realistic way possible. Like getting to know your likes, your dislikes, what works, what doesn't work. Like that to me is a great way to spend your time and energy, because without that, you're just trial and erroring way too much and you're getting less results less quickly in the process. And to me, like, again, I'm all working for smarter and not harder. Work smarter, like save that energy, put it towards something else.
Yeah, I totally agree. So kind of on that note then, I know you're doing some work with Alpha Gamma Delta alumni right now and kind of offering some sessions and some coaching there. So in what ways are you working with those folks, and like what kind of topics are coming up in your work there?
So I was an alumni initiate, so I didn't have Greek life at my school right outside of Boston. It's like not it's interesting being in the Northeast. I went to Stonehill College and I was initiated into Gamma Zeta. Woohoo. And I think that everybody needs a tribe of sorts. So mine was my basketball girls. We didn't have Greek life, and being an alum initiate was very cool. And I got to see life from a different perspective. And I think that was helpful because I went to Wendy Barker, who's over at Alpha Gam in the CMO role. And I was like, listen, as an alum, what is there for us? Like, I don't have a chapter up here. I have 0 time / skill set to be an advisor. Nobody wants me advising anybody on recruitment. I've never done it. And I was like, what's there for our women? Like, there's so many statistics about women at a certain age. We become more lonely, especially if you put kids into the mix. Like mothers are struggling to connect. Time's an issue. Distance is an issue. So I kind of was spitballing with Wendy, and she thankfully let my brain just kind of process out loud. And we started this online resource for our women at Alpha Gam. And we looked at different ways to connect. And it's still very much in a pilot year, but we have almost this like Facebook-esque, and I hate to say that because it's so much better, where people can discuss things. And I try to put out prompts every week, every couple of days during the week about, let's do an F word on Fridays, like would you rather kind of things to get people really just talking. There's a chat feature that sisters can connect to other people. We just started more on our job board to help people with conversations intergenerationally about work, about job opportunities, about interviewing. And then we have our live events, which are really wonderful. And you will be on next month. So excited.
Yes.
Talking about different stuff in our world, whether that's professional development, personal development. We just had on Samantha and Katie talking about, Samantha Handy and Katie Savals talking about Galentine's Day and how to host a brunch party versus a sit down dinner versus something casual. And I took so many notes. It was so amazing. And just learning different things. We had cookie demonstrations, and I did one on holiday burnout. We're going to talk again about like reinvigorating your space. I hope to have people on for flower arranging and finances. Like I really wanted to span the gamut of just what we come up against, what can fill our cup, what can make life a little bit easier, and really leverage our sisters and their expertise in a way to give back that maybe they don't always have the time to do to the capacities that we would love to do. But this gives us a chance to showcase, our talents and to give back and to connect. And I think that is so wonderful and so needed for women, especially after they graduate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Because you're moving off to places you may not know people. And like you said, there may not be alum chapters wherever that is. And so this is a great way to connect. And that's one of the positives of the like post-pandemic world is all of the online ways that we connect differently than we did before. And I think it doesn't supplement or it doesn't replace the in-person connection, but it certainly can supplement it, I guess.
Yeah, I think anytime we're having conversations, don't quote me on this research because I didn't like follow the rabbit hole and I got it on Instagram because apparently that's where I get all my information now. But like 12 minutes of conversation with your friend can totally turn around your day. And there's something really wonderful about connection. And I think specifically as women, not saying men don't need it, they do. But as women, we really do need that in our lives. If you look at evolutionary psychology, when you look at, hunter-gatherer, when we're talking about being in a tribe, when we're talking about being in a community, women historically were the ones that were storytelling. We, through research and through anthropological studies, are the ones that allow traditions to carry on. Like it's encoded in us to communicate and to come together and to have community. And without it, really bad things start to happen. Like isolation and loneliness and all that stuff, when it gets inside a woman specifically, again, not saying that with a man, it really messes with us in different ways than I've seen than with men. So if you're finding that you are wanting that, reach out, like talk to somebody, find a tribe online. I think that, like you're saying, there's a million different resources post-pandemic that are completely and totally available to you in so many different ways that require so much less travel and effort that would normally be inhibitors.
And everything you've just described about like finding a place to belong and combating loneliness, all of that applies, I think, to the reasons why folks go through recruitment and join sororities in the first place. You talked about you already had your community built in through basketball, and that typically happens with athletics, right? You have your teammates, that's your community in college, and that's great. That's your place to plug in. I was someone who didn't have that in college, where somewhere very small for high school, and was like, Lord help, I want to go somewhere that nobody knows my name, right? I can just get lost in the shuffle, except not really get lost. And so that's what drove me to go the route of recruitment. And it made a huge difference to give me that family and that group of people to lean on during those years in college.
And that's so cool that you knew you needed that, right? Like there's something about that level of self-awareness, even when we think about like being in college and it's so overwhelming, especially that first year. And it's like, what do I need? What do I want? And those are two different things. And like, how do I know the difference between needs and wants? And there's something really wonderful about knowing that you needed that. Let me ask you a question. How did you get there? Like, how are you like, okay, this is something that's important to me?
My dad was in a fraternity in college, and he always spoke so highly of his time there and living in the house. And he was still friends with, or is still friends with, many of his fraternity brothers. And so I saw that through childhood and growing up. And so I thought, well, that would make sense. That would be a way to connect and have some belonging and still give me that larger university experience at the same time.
I love that. I think that's so wonderful. I mean, college is a place you can easily get lost in. And if you don't find, you said it before with me, like your corner of the world, there's something you might be missing out on of like, I don't know. I think people are scared to try because they're like, oh, what if I don't find my people?
Yeah.
In my mind, if you don't try, you're definitely not going to find your people. Like, so I would rather you swing and miss and try again than just be like, well, I'm just floating from here and there and I have no sense of belonging. Because at the end of the day, what I've learned about people and human behavior is we all want to feel seen, we all want to feel heard, and we all want to feel understood. Like literally, no matter who you are, what your income is, your race, like your gender, like that's what we need as human beings. And to deprive yourself of that, I think, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I say get out there and try, no matter where you are in life, even if it's, outside of college and you got to find yourself all over again, which does happen.
Yeah, it does. I know I've talked to a lot of people lately. It's funny you said that are maybe looking at career changes or some sort of life change and kind of reinvention in their 40s and their 50s. And it's just funny, you always think that you're supposed to get all set up and settled and ride that train till the end. And that's not actual reality.
It's not. I was just researching something about, I'm going to butcher this word because I just learned it. Matricence, I think. Quote, okay. Send me a DM if I'm wrong. Matricence, and it's about there's fact checkers out there, right? I know somebody's going to do it. It's okay. I welcome it. There's something about this idea of when you become a mom, your identity then completely shifts once again. So it's like we are always evolving. I think if I'm remembering myself in college, I'm like, when I'm older, I'll figure it out. And older was like 25, which I look back and like, I don't know what I was thinking then. I thought I'd have it all figured out by 25. I did not. But it's interesting because I think we will have it together at some point. And I think when we lean into the chaos in a beautiful way and we're like, okay, I'm allowed to change. I'm allowed to grow. Like even with your, interior design and spaces, like I can repaint this wall. I can rearrange this furniture. Like I don't need to stress out on it being perfect right now. I don't know. I think it allows ourselves to be a little bit more forgiving. And that grace word we talk a lot about, like I think we allow ourselves a bit more grace to be a little messy as we're trying to figure it out. But, and this is the big part, still try to figure it out.
Isn't it funny how we're more willing to give others grace significantly more than we are willing to give ourselves grace? We're so much harder on ourselves, I think.
It's so, so true. And I have found that specifically with high performers, we tend to underestimate our productivity levels. We underestimate our contribution levels because we always think it should be more, it should be better. And I talk a lot about this with the surgeons and I force them, they hate it, but too bad. I force them to sit down and define what success actually means to them. And I don't even mean professionally. Sometimes I mean like, at the end of your days, what does success mean? I'm sure it wasn't like, I wish I worked a couple more hours. I bet it would be like, I wish I would have handled this differently. Or, my family, what does success mean for my family? How did I grow up hearing about success? And I think those different terms will help you understand your value system and what's valuable to you. And when you can do that, then you can start to implement grace in a way where it actually fuels and stokes that fire and allows it to catch flame where you're kind of ablaze in this direction that is, authentic to you. And that to me is wildly important because I've seen so many successful people start a career because their mom wanted them to be a doctor or a surgeon, or, my dad was an executive, so I wanted to be an executive, but it didn't really do it for them. And something was always missing. So starting that out now and checking in along the way about what you want, what you need are all really great ways to allow yourself to have really great communication with yourself, just like you would with a friend or a loved one. Like we need to also prioritize that because if you don't, nobody else is going to do it for you.
Yeah, you're right. It's all up to you. And it's really interesting you were talking about asking them to define success because I have found personally that definition for me has changed over time and has evolved as I have evolved and has had different life experiences.
Totally. I love when people come to me, they're like, well, success means being happy. And I'm like, well, what is happiness? And they're like, success. And I'm like, no, wrong. You can't do that. It's cheating. And I think there's something about defining these words we use a lot. And I challenge even, my high performers like, okay, well, what do you mean that wasn't good enough, right? What about it wasn't good enough? Why wasn't it good enough? Because you objectively or subjectively, said so? Like, what about the objectivity in it? How do we create systems and rubrics without being like too tied into that allow us to fact check ourselves or emotionally check ourselves, because feelings are real and they're valid, but they're not facts. So just because you felt like a failure doesn't mean you actually failed. And to be fair, just because you feel like a success doesn't mean that you are actually also a success. You might be failing at home with your family or with your friends. And redefining words we use a lot to judge or to measure, I think is an important piece of us also being fully present in our narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And I'm somebody who loves words, so I'm always like loving like expanding vocabulary or, looking at what a word truly means and how that applies to me. Again, I'm getting very nerdy, but you know what I mean.
Nope. Love it. Love it. And I think we can even see it in like daily interactions. Like my husband, Jimmy, right? We had this conversation the other day. Like my version of clean and his version of clean are very different. So we had to like sit down and redefine what clean meant, because dishes in the sink might mean a clean countertop, but it doesn't make sense to me that that's a clean kitchen. Like, and even in your partnerships, you're going to have, or your roommates, right? Any relationship, you're going to have these conversations to make sure there's alignment. And that to me is so important, of like finding alignment with the people around you, using communication to get there, using self-awareness to be a piece that pushes you into better alignment with like what you want, what you need, all of these things. I'm just a walking ad for like therapy and coaching, I suppose. All these things like go, do, see. And if you need help with, like, there are people out there that can help you. And I think even in the physical realm where you're in, of like space and color, and this is my room to reflect, I want it to be like this, like that to me is amazing. And it's a huge, huge resource.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that we're creating spaces that are really valuable to folks. And I appreciate the piece of advice you gave that, even with your roommates. So if you've got somebody listening right now that's in college or about to go into college and they're living with roommates, like getting aligned with each other and kind of defining what that looks like. We tend to want to say, we'll deal with it when it happens, right? And then in the moment of conflict, we shy away from it, or we're too mad. Things get heated. And instead, if you would just address it on the front end, then you already kind of have a roadmap of how to deal with it.
Yeah. Smarter and not harder, Liz. Yes, exactly. Perfectly said.
We should have a little flag behind us that just says smarter, not harder, because like that's the motto here. You were talking about feelings, and you have a podcast called Feelings and Other F Words, which always makes me chuckle because I have a favorite F word myself. So talk about your podcast and what all you talk about on there.
I love that. Yes. So Feelings and Other F Words started as my millennial urge to have a podcast, because why not? I have 3-year-old twins, and they had just, it must have been like 14 months at the time. And I was like, I just need to talk out loud into the ether. So it started as me, I don't know, like really satisfying that millennial urge, that mother urge to just like be heard, even if it was only me listening to it. So there was something kind of like very selfish in the most beautiful way possible about it. Like I started it for me. There was no purpose. There was no real direction. And I knew I wanted to talk about why we are the way we are and to give some advice about what to do about it. Because at the same time, I was really fed up with all of these Instagram influencers and wellness gurus with no real background. Like I was really, really annoyed. And I started to like break down the science and put it in a way that was digestible, and then say like, okay, here's what next. Here's what to do with that. And people responded really well. And I was shocked because I thought only my father listened to it, if only to critique the audio. And I really thought like, okay, this isn't going to go anywhere. It was just for me. And it ended up in Vogue magazine as a top 10 mental health and wellness podcast. And I was only planning on doing one season, but apparently I have to keep going because give the people what they want. But
I mean, that's a big deal. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. Each week, I try to take an F word that I've either come across in my life that week or I have a really cool expert on. And I try to break down, again, the science behind it, why we are the way we are, and to give some tangible advice on what to do with it. And we've had some cool stuff on family dynamics. We've had some really cool stuff on forgiveness, on lying, on figuring out kind of like functioning and dysfunction have been some of my favorites. We've done someone on motherhood and finding your tribe or finding your people, whether you're a mom or not. So some really cool ones. And yes, thank you for asking me about it.
Yes, no, I love it. I catch it periodically and really enjoy it.
All of my just out loud thoughts just broadcasted. It's, you never know what you're going to get. And sometimes I always record it like free form, long form. So it's never like pieced together. So you're getting just literally like whatever I'm thinking about at the time and the research I've come across. So it's, when we talk about like authentic, it might be a little too authentic.
I mean, is there such a thing?
Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, of course. But, it was funny when you said just like talking out there. It's like my childhood dream, the whole podcast situation. I used to lock myself, this is very telling, in our bathroom at the house. And the drawer, you could pull it out and it would keep the door from opening, like this little hall bathroom. And I would get up on our step stool that we'd use to brush our teeth. And I'd take the like hairbrush or the curling iron and I would talk into the mirror for hours. I would pretend like I was on TV. I would just talk like the whole thing. And then I guess as an adult, that means you get a podcast.
And here you are.
Right.
I love it. I mean, and you're so good at it. And it's such a great topic and forum. Like, I think, you're doing a huge service to your audience out there by being able to bring all these different ideas and concepts together, especially around sisterhood and sorority. Like, there's something really wonderful about that. And I think we all, again, want to feel less, I don't know. My type A comes out where I'm like, I don't like unknowns. I want to learn. I want to know about it. Like, I don't like not knowing. But I think like podcasts are such a great way to learn and get exposed. And when we're talking about like finding yourself, this is a really great way to do that. And learning about yourself in different forums and not just these influencers online. But I think it's really cool that you're doing it. And I'm glad that you had those moments in the mirror growing up.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I hope that this podcast offers some really helpful nuggets to those in the sorority world. As an aside, when you keep talking about health influencers, have you watched Apple Cider Vinegar yet?
Not yet. It is literally on my watch list. And I want to watch it alone because my husband will be like, wait, hold on. What about? And I just want to like watch it through and then I will watch it with him.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's a little, there's been a few people where I'm like, I'm not confrontational online. Like I believe you can speak into the ether however you want. But there's been like a few people I've come across being like, should I respond? Like, I feel like I should respond. And then ultimately I'm like, no, just let them be. Respond in a different way. But no, I haven't seen it. Have you?
I have watched the first couple episodes and need to continue. I started it with some friends and then they finished it on their own. And I just want to see because I'm fascinated by the whole thing. It's very strange to me.
There's another one on Hulu. I don't think she was an influencer. I think she was part of a church and like had brain cancer allegedly.
Scamanda. I listened to the podcast. I have not watched the documentary.
I haven't watched that either, but I'm like going into, I feel like a couple of years ago it was all about con artists in like the dating world, like the Anna Levy's and Tinder Swindler. Yeah. And like now we're into this like different type of con artist, but yeah, careful out there, people. Check credentials, ask for receipts, question things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so the listeners are kind of divided into two segments here. We've got like active sorority members currently in college, and then we have folks that support them, whether it be a parent, house core board, house director, and so on. So I've got kind of a two-part question for you. What is your best kind of leadership advice for, or maybe just general advice, you can go whichever way you want, for a student going through college right now? Like, what would be your best piece of advice to them?
I think knowing who you are is the greatest gift that you can give yourself. And I know I said it a bunch of times, but I truly mean it. Investing in yourself, whether that's through listening to podcasts like this or getting journal prompt books or, getting coaching or therapy. I think it's a really great way to learn about yourself so you can streamline your actions and therefore your behaviors in a direction that you choose. I am a huge fan of becoming the author of your story, and no one can take that from you. So I think getting to know yourself, loving who you are and who you're not, is also a really big part of that. And to be kind to yourself along the way, because like you're going to mess up. You're not going to have it all right. Trust me, you are not. You are going to, I don't like the F word failure, but you might call it failure. You are going to figure it out along the way. And it might feel like failure, but it is figuring it out. So be kind to yourself. And I think that is something I wish everybody knew about college. It wasn't for getting it right. It was for figuring it out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice. And I think the more students can hear that and start to put that into practice, it would really benefit them. So now kind of the same question for those that are out of college, but they're back supporting college students. Maybe your advice, appeals to that or not, but what would be your best piece of advice for those folks?
Well, I think, we're all still figuring out our own stuff. I think refining it at that level, if we're going in the direction of like, what can you do for yourself? Refine out what works for you and what doesn't. I'm a big Occam's razor fan. If it doesn't work, cut it out, get rid of it. And if you don't know what works or not, pay attention. You will know very quickly. Like if there are habits or behaviors that you are finding don't have an ROI, like don't have a return on investment, don't do them. Right. And that's easier said than done, but it needs to be said sometimes in order to be done. And I think that's the biggest thing, is to audit yourself. Like hopefully you're in a place where maybe you're a little streamlined, maybe you're a little aligned. Audit out what doesn't work, so it will leave room for more things to come to you, or for you to have more energy to do more things. Because there's tons of research that shows that we run out of control, out of motivation at some point in our day. Not even in our lives, our day. This is why like gentle parenting will like leave your body at some point. You can only be gentle for so long before you're like, absolutely not, I'm exhausted. So by streamlining your day, by auditing your day, by figuring out what works and what doesn't work, you'll avoid those triggers and get less triggered. So that's a huge thing. If you're supporting somebody in college, maybe on the other side of that, understand that it's not easy to be in the 20 space. Everyone says, oh my God, your 20s are your best decade of your life. Like, I disagree. I don't think that they're not great. I just think that there are more questions than there are answers in your 20s. And that sometimes is absolutely overwhelming. So reminding yourself of that, remembering that. And if you need science to back it up, like there's actually 3 different times in your life that you'll get a flood of new neurons in your brain. At birth, makes sense. Around 15, makes sense. And then around like 20, 21, 22. And what that does is it actually makes us feel more anxious. We don't have the synaptic connections to go along with these new synapses, which basically means that you are struggling to make sense of the world around you because those pathways haven't developed yet. So you're overwhelmed, you're anxious, you may be a little afraid, maybe you're having outbursts or you're angry, which again is not okay. You need to control your behavior. But I do think that there's something too when you're supporting somebody else in that space, remembering that. And if you can't remember yourself in that space, remember that like the science there is very real and they're going through a lot, and not adding to it, but allowing for there to be a safe space, beautifully decorated, of course, that allows for you guys to communicate about things rather than judge or push or pull or whatever.
Yes, very, very valuable advice. And I really appreciate the comment on cutting out what doesn't work for you, because it is hard to do. But once you get started and you start to see some results from that, it becomes easier the more that you practice it.
Totally. I think, like for us here, me and Jimmy, my husband, he's a big TV watcher. I'm not. And I've fallen into his TV things because that's our like quote unquote like together time. And I actually hate it because I think it's junk time. I think there's a time and a place for it. So we've started to cut it out and we're like, oh, this is actually much better. Like we play Rummy Cube together because we're apparently 90, and we like, do projects around the house. And it's like, I'd much rather spend time with you like that. How are we even sitting down so long watching TV as often as we did? So you'll start to really feel it, and it will be a visceral reaction. But if you just continue to do what you've always done, you're going to be where you've always been.
So true. So true. Okay, you talked about games. Before you go, I just saw on your social that you were playing Mahjong this weekend, perhaps?
Oh, that's right. We have to talk about this. My second time playing Mahjong, and clearly I'm a pro. because it's such an easy game to learn.
Right.
I'm
Hard.
very addicted. I love it a lot. I mean, I just downloaded the app to practice on my own because clearly I do need to be good at it because the inner competitor in me. But yeah, no, I'm obsessed. Do you play?
I have only played it once. I bought like an inexpensive set on Amazon and had it delivered when some friends came to visit. So I need to look up this app that you speak of. I know lots of folks that play and really enjoy it. And I think my problem is going to be I'm going to get sucked into the beautiful tiles and mats because of the whole like aesthetic thing. But I need to learn to play first or I'm going to end up very angry and then not want to play.
If aesthetics are a way to draw you into something beautiful like Mahjong, I say let it go with the flow. But yes, I will send you the app that I use. And it's hard, right? It's not easy, but once you get it, it all starts to make a little bit of sense. So if you're out there and you're thinking about Mahjong, I say go for it because it's kind of like golf is for men. And I'm being very stereotypical, but like I'm going to be, so allow me. But it's like a way to be like, I can't have a phone. I can't have a distraction. No, you can't reach me. No, I can't come home. Like we're in this. And sometimes games take a while. And it's kind of like a nice little bubble to be in and be social with people you don't know because you don't need to talk because you're thinking. So I think it's a really great way to also maybe interject yourself into a new place that you normally wouldn't because like you're not socializing, but you're still being social. And for an introvert like me, like that's my love language. I love that.
All right. Good advice. So if people want to connect with you, what are the best ways that they could do that?
You can find me mostly on Instagram, reposting memes because they are also my love language at Dr. Daryl Appleton. You can find me on my website, www.drappleton.com or on Fridays, Feelings and Other F Words, wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. So you can always send me a DM or whatever. I'm around. I would love to hear from you.
Yes. And I will say, you mentioned the memes, which are always hilarious, but I am there for the fashion, the home, and the twins content as well, because all of that is very entertaining on your Instagram.
I needed you the other day so badly, Liz. We bought chairs off of Facebook Marketplace.
God. I saw really tiny chairs.
They're gorgeous, but they're for like dolls. And I'm so annoyed. I'm so annoyed because they were so perfect for this antique table we refinished. But you win some, you lose some. But yes, you can also be entertained with that type of comment of me just emoting into the interweb about all of my life struggles, which are very first world problems, which I am grateful for, but still they are problems.
Well, it's entertaining if nothing else. So
fair.
And we will have all of that contact information that you shared in the show notes for today's episode. So thank you so much, Daryl, for joining us. And I hope that you all enjoyed Dr. Daryl Appleton today.
Thank you for having me. I adore Liz. I adore everything she does. So keep on listening to her.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Design for longevity, not just the trends. If you're renovating or building a chapter house, think timeless when it comes to your finish selections. Things like classic neutrals in your paint colors and cabinetry, high quality flooring, and durable countertops like quartz. You want a space that looks fresh for years, not something that screams 2024 Pinterest board. Working with your designer, architect, and contractor will ensure that you're headed in the right direction with these finishes. Listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Toombs, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. On that note, I'm Liz Toombs with Sorority Chat, and I'll see you on the next one. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Toombs.